Hi, it's Bimerzen with another video, and this time I am diagnosing an engine issue on this BMW 1 Series with N43 engine inside. This is the 2-liter version, and the problem is that the car just won't start. So you try to start it and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It has VANOS codes for the exhaust side and some other codes. So let's see what's going on. I'm inside of the car now and I have the contact on and my cable connected to the OBD port, and I have the INPA running on my laptop, and I already went into the error menu and this is what we have. It's quite a list. So let's take it from the top. So the first error is 2A99, Kurbelwelle, Auslassnockenwelle, Referenz. So that means that the exhaust camshaft is out of reference to the crankshaft. This is definitely not good. Then we have the 2A87, Auslass-VANOS Mechanik, schwergängig, klemmt, mechanisch. That means that the exhaust VANOS is mechanically binding, so it's hard to move. This is definitely not good. And then it gets worse, I guess. We have the 30C1, Motoröldruckregelung statisch, Druck zu niedrig. That means that the engine oil pressure regulating is too low. Now these engines, they have electronically regulated oil pressure, or should I say oil flow. And this is detecting that the oil pressure is too low. This is very concerning. Then we have the 2F9E, thermischer Ölniveau sensor, Signalfeld. Yeah, this is also a very bad sign. So this means that the level sensor is not working, or at least the ECU is not detecting the signal. So these engines, they don't have an oil dipstick tube, so they only have the electronic sensor for the level. And if the sensor goes bad or it loses signal, it will turn on the warning light. However, if you ignore it, it's gonna lead to low oil level, and that's gonna lead to problems with regulating oil. And because the VANOS units are not adjusting the timing correctly, you're gonna get this error, which is the reference to the crankshaft. And yeah, this goes out of timing. So this is all very bad news. And then at the end, we also have synchronization errors for the intake. So we have both camshafts out of time, and we have the Differenzdrucksensor Saugrohr adaptation. So we also have some error for the intake, but I would say that this is caused by all those previous errors here. Whoa, yeah, this is pretty bad. Okay, next we have to check oiling. So we can't check oil level directly. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna check the oil filter, and next we're gonna check for any debris on the VANOS solenoids and see what's going on. I'm gonna use this handy tool to remove the oil filter. Now this car was standing still for a couple of months because of this error, so there's not gonna be a lot of oil here, but let's see what we have. Whoa, no. No. This is very bad. Whoa, no. This oil filter is totally collapsed. Okay. So at this point, we already know that this is gonna be a major problem going forward. So this filter is totally collapsed. It's probably full of debris. That's why it opened up. And that means that debris went past the filter into the engine. So yeah, not good. Let's check the VANOS solenoids. They're underneath here, so we have to remove this front intake duct. Here are the solenoids. So the top one is for the exhaust and the bottom one is for the intake side. So now we have to unplug the connectors and then undo the 10mm bolts, and then we will be able to remove the solenoids. Now let's pull out the first solenoid. And now for the intake side. Let's take a look at the screen mesh on top of the solenoids, and it doesn't look that bad. But I have a confession to make. I already took them out and I cleaned them a little bit. So now I'm going to put a picture of how this solenoid looked like when I took it out for the first time. And brace yourself. Yeah, it's horrible. And the second solenoid was the same. So the screen mesh was completely blocked by debris, and by the look of the debris it looked like copper material, so that means that the main bearings are gone, and that also probably means that the engine needs a complete rebuild. Now if you find this in your car, I would suggest you just go ahead and get a new engine, because there's probably gonna be a lot of damage here. You can reuse a lot of parts from your old engine, but yeah, at this point, if you see this kind of damage, you're gonna need a new engine. I removed the oil filter element, and wow, the filter is in horrible condition. It's totally opened. Let's see what we have inside. I see some copper debris inside of the oil cap. Yeah, this is bad. I will see, maybe I will reuse this engine and do a rebuild series on the N43. Now the next step that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drain the oil and see how much oil the engine has and what condition is in. I'm underneath the car and look what I found. Wow. The oil level sensor is not even connected. How the heck did this happen? Well, no wonder that the car has error code for the oil level sensor. Well, I'm not sure. This looks like original sensor. Wow, this is very suspicious. Well, I'm going to reconnect it now. Let's drain the oil next. So I'm going to undo the plug and I'm gonna let the oil out. Whoa, yeah, this oil looks quite old and black. How much oil is in this engine? This is way too much oil. It just keeps on pouring out. Look at this, the pan is almost completely full. This is not normal amount of oil. Ladies and gentlemen, this engine had 9 liters of oil inside. This is just insane. So this is one 5-liter container, and this is also a 5-liter container, and it's almost full, and this one is totally full. So definitely 9 liters of oil inside of this engine. I'm really scared. Who took care of this car? Oh man, oh man. Well, let's just continue with our investigation. The oil had nice copper sheen on the surface, so I know that there was copper inside the oil. Normal filling capacity for the N43 engine is 4.25 liters of oil. So yeah, that was overboard. And the reason why this is a problem is that if there's too much oil in the engine and it reaches over the crankshaft, then the crankshaft starts to stir up the oil and it starts foaming, and that introduces air bubbles into the oil, and that means that the pump cannot pump enough oil and it cannot lubricate all of the components. That's why you get spun bearings, and that's why you get all of this damage. Okay, so I'm gonna investigate a bit further and check the damage on the top side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the valve cover and see what's going on with the camshafts, with the timing and with the VANOS units. And yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, time for the damage report. So I removed the valve cover and the camshafts. And if you want to see how to do that, I'm gonna put the other video down in the description, so you can check it out if you need to do this. But anyway, let's see what we have here. I have everything laid out on my workbench. So let's start with the cylinder head. I've cleaned it up a little bit, and let's see the journals. So this is the intake side. This part here, you can see it has some embedded material. Well, it's not too bad, but it's also not great. So let's go to the number 2 bearing. And as you can see, there are some signs of damage. I can just about catch it with my fingernail. So this is not ideal, but overall it's not that bad. Let's go to the number 3 journal. It's in a slightly better condition. Nothing that catches the fingernail. This is the number 4. Also quite smooth, so not that bad, surprisingly. Now let's take a look at number 4. Also we have some signs of damage. It also catches the fingernail a little bit, but it's not very bad condition, I must say. Okay, now let's check the exhaust side. Here we can see that the journals are not in that bad of a condition. This is the number 1 journal, also quite smooth. Nothing on number 2. Number 3, not that bad, and also number 4, also quite smooth. So surprisingly good condition for the damage that we have. Another thing I noticed is of course this broken chain rail. Maybe even the chain jumped a tooth. Not sure about that. And now we come to the top journals or bearing shells, and this is where it gets bad. So these are the journals, and as you can see, they're pretty rough. Okay, so this is intake side, number 1. Yeah, not a good condition. And wow, that definitely catches the fingernail. I can't even move my fingernail across this without totally catching on the damaged parts. This one is definitely not okay. Then we have number 2, similar condition. Again, maybe a tad better, but it still catches the fingernail quite a lot. We have number 3 here, basically the same situation. Well, actually it is a bit better. It's not that bad, surprisingly. And then we have the number 4 Yeah, it's not good. And it's interesting that the top part of the bearings are in much worse condition. That's probably because the camshafts are loaded in this direction, because they have to compress the valve springs. So this is where the camshafts push against. Yeah, interesting the difference between the cylinder head and these bearing shells. Let's take a look at the exhaust side. So this one is pretty good, I think. Not in a bad condition. So this is number 4. Okay, 4 is good. We have one good bearing. And this one is number 1. And yeah, not good at all. Well, it's not as bad as the intake side. And then we have this housing for the high pressure fuel pump that is driven by the camshaft. And we can see that there is some damage, but it's in good condition otherwise. Let me do the fingernail check. Wow, it's not bad at all. So I guess this survived the carnage. Let's check the front bearing shell. This is for the intake and for the exhaust side. So this is the intake side. Let's check it out. It's not that bad at all. Now let's check the other side. And this one is in a slightly worse state. I don't feel too much damage with my fingernail, but we can see that there's just a little bit of embedded material. Now let's check the camshafts. This is the intake side. This front journal looks rough, but it doesn't catch the fingernail. Let's try this side. Oh yeah, not good. Wow, this definitely catches the fingernail. This one, even worse. This one, yeah. Let me see if you can hear this. Yeah, not good. So these camshafts are gone. Okay, let's check the exhaust side. So this is the front bearing. It looks nice actually. Let's check the first journal. Yeah, not very good. The second journal. It's smooth on this side, but pretty rough on the front side. This is number 3. Again, it doesn't catch the fingernail too much, but it still looks rough. And here is the last journal. So this one is kind of smooth. Realistically, both camshafts are unusable. And also, the problem is that all of these bearing cups, they are line bored with the cylinder head, which means that they're only compatible with one cylinder head. The way this is bored out is all of these bearing shells are attached to the cylinder head and then they are bored in line. So that's why you should never mix them up. That's why they are marked at the top for the intake and the exhaust side. Even if this side is still usable, these shells are probably too rough to be used. So you have to scrap the cylinder head. It sucks, I know, but this is just the way the engines are made these days. I have an N42 engine on my engine stand, and just for fun, we're going to compare a known good engine with this known bad engine. So I've removed one bearing cup on the exhaust side. Here you can see the difference. It's perfectly smooth, and when I put my fingernail on it, it's very smooth on the touch. So this engine also has 200,000 kilometers on the clock, and if we compare them, you can see the difference. Same kilometers, one is good, the other is bad. Okay, let's also check the camshaft. Let me check with my fingernail. Oh yeah, This is perfectly smooth. This is a good camshaft. There's nothing there. Very smooth. Also here. I do like myself some smooth smooth running surface. So here are the solenoids. Not much to say about them. They will probably need to be replaced. Well, you can clean them out and test them out, but I don't know, I wouldn't put them in a good working engine. I've also decided to open up one of the VANOS units. This is the exhaust side that was problematic, and I did found a lot of debris inside, so I had to clean it out. Also, the locking mechanism was kind of blocked by the debris. So I have a separate video on that, and I will link it down below or up in the card. So check it out if you are interested in how to disassemble and reassemble a VANOS unit. Although you should really not do that. So this concludes the investigation. The car needs new engine. So I'm going to take this engine out and inspect the damage on the bottom side, on the main bearings. So I'm going to make another video about that. And I'm also going to make a video on how to remove and install a new engine in the BMW 1 series. And I'm also going to make a video on how to replace the valve stem seals on the BMW's N43 engine using this special 3D printed tool that I make. So this tool makes this process a bit faster and easier. And you need to replace the seals if you have high oil consumption. It's usually the bad seals, not the piston rings. This brings us to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing and liking if you have N42, N46 or N43 engine. Keep zen and continue the art of BMW maintenance.